Tailwind CSS is a popular option for styling applications, and Remix is a JavaScript framework. Combining the two together is a powerful option to get your projects off the ground faster. I'm Brittany Postma, and in this tutorial, I'll show you how to start a brand new Remix project, add in Tailwind CSS, and deploy using the Netlify CLI. Let's get started in the terminal where you want to create your application and check your Node and NPM version. I'm currently running 16.16 of Node.js, which is the latest long-term support version, or LTS, and 8.11.0 of NPM at the time of recording. Now we can go ahead and create our Remix project by running npx create remix at latest, and then the name of your project. I'll call mine Remix with Tailwind. This kicks off the CLI or command line interface for starting a Remix project. This will go through a list of questions to configure your project. First, it wants to know what type of app we want to create, just the basics or a pre-configured stack ready for production. Today, we're going to start from scratch and choose just the basics. Now we have a list of deployment targets to choose from. Remix needs to adapt itself for each platform individually. Let's choose Netlify, because later we'll be deploying with the Netlify CLI. I'll go ahead and configure my project for TypeScript, but you can also choose JavaScript here. And finally, go ahead and say Y and enter to run npm install. That installs all of the necessary dependencies for Remix to run. Now we'll change directory into the newly created folder. There are several ways to use Tailwind in a project, but this is the recommended path for using it in a production application because it uses PostCSS and auto prefixer to optimize your CSS. Let's install the required dependencies with the -D flag to only install them for development. We need to install Tailwind CSS, PostCSS, auto prefixer, and concurrently. These will not go into your production code. Next, we'll run the command npx tailwind css init. This will generate a Tailwind config file at the root of your project. Let's go ahead and open it up in a code editor and see what we've created. I'll be using VS Code. The package.json file has everything we just installed already, but we need to edit the scripts to use the packages, update the build and dev commands, and add the new build::css and dev::css scripts. Our build script now runs the npm run build::css script as well as the Remix build script. Build::css will run the Tailwind CSS and move the styles app.css file over to the output file in the app folder styles and app.css file. For development mode, it will run concurrently, which we just installed, to run npm run dev::css as well as the Remix dev server. Dev::css will run the Tailwind CSS with a watch flag to watch the styles/app.css file and output it into the generated app/styles/app.css file. Now let's take a look at the generated tailwind.config.js file. This is the file Tailwind uses to configure your project by extending or replacing styles, adding plugins, and telling it what files to watch. We need to add in the files for the Remix app to the content array so Tailwind knows where to look for Tailwind classes. In Remix, it will look in the app directory for any files with these extensions. Looking back at the package.json, we can see the build::css and dev::css scripts use a file located at the root of the project in the styles directory and app.css file, and then outputs it into the app directory with the generated CSS. Let's go ahead and add those by first creating a folder at the root of your app called styles, and then inside a file called app.css. Inside the app.css file, add the Tailwind directives that inject the Tailwind base, the Tailwind components, and the Tailwind utilities. This is also where you can add any custom or global CSS to your application. The final step is to import the generated CSS file into the root.tsx file in the app directory. Add import styles from and then the current directory, styles/app.css. Then we need to tell Remix to use this style sheet in the application with the links function. Here we'll export a function called links, and if you're using TypeScript, add the links function type. We'll import this next. Then return an array with an object inside with the rel property style sheet and the href property set to the styles we imported. Now on line 1, add the links function type next to the meta function into the import type from Remix Run node. And that will take care of the import for the links function type that we just added. One last thing to note is to make sure the capital L links component is imported and used in the head section of the markup. Let's go ahead and add some Tailwind classes to the body tag so that we can see some changes when we run our dev server. I'll add background teal 700 to change the background color and then change the text color to white. Save your file and open a terminal and we can test that it's working locally. Run npm run dev and you can see the output styles app.css generated. Open up localhost 3000 in the browser and we can see our classes getting applied. Go ahead and shut down the server with Control-C. Now we need to run git init to initialize the Git repo, run git add dot to add all of our files, and git commit -m, and then initial commit or a commit message of your choice. I'll use GitHub as my Git provider, and I like to use the GitHub CLI to create my repositories. With the GitHub CLI, you can run gh-repo create and then choose to push an existing local repository to GitHub. Follow the prompt, name your project, add a description if you wish, and then choose to push the commits from the current branch to origin. Now it's time to deploy with a Netlify CLI. Check to make sure you have the Netlify CLI installed and the version by running Netlify or just NTL for short -v. If you don't have it installed, you can run npm i-g for global Netlify-CLI. At the root of your project, run ntl init in your terminal and choose to create and configure a new site. Choose your team and pick a site name. I'll name mine Tailwind Remix Tutorial. We'll add remix build for the build command, public for the build folder, and we don't have any Netlify functions, so that option is fine as well. In just a few seconds, your site is building on Netlify. Wait just a moment and you can run ntl open :site to open the newly deployed site in your browser and see the Tailwind styles applied there also. You can also run ntl open :admin to view the project dashboard in Netlify. I'm Brittany Postma, and this has been How to Use Tailwind CSS with Remix.